Hooah! Hooah! Hi, I'm James. James Loves Games. Good morning. It is August. Gosh, I'm already... I can't get through the date without just cracking my voice. Yeah. It is August 31st, 2023. And yeah, how's everybody doing today? I am going to be taking a bit of a departure from the games department, as I announced I would at the outset of this podcast, and be talking about something I like to call gaming adjacent. It's anime. Anime. And I have just been going through an anime transformation. I'm becoming an animan, and I don't know what I'm saying. What's up, Shining Lugia? How are you? Today I'm talking about anime. So to give you a little backstory, I've got lots of anime to talk about today. But I've got a little bit of a setup for you. Shining Lugia, it's only August 31st for another 30 minutes. Oh, for you, maybe. You time traveling Pokemon. Nothing like a time traveling Pokemon to tell you what date it really is. So a little bit of backstory for me, a little bit of anime backstory. I love games. I've been playing games my whole life. I've been loving watching anime for most of my life. I think back when I was a kid, we called it Japanimation, which I know just sounds like the worst thing ever. And somewhere around like 1998, people started calling it anime instead of Japanimation. Or maybe it was just me and my family that called it Japanimation. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I heard other people say that, and I'm pretty sure that's how it was labeled at the video store in the 80s and early 90s. So I don't know. Maybe I made that up in my brain. It's one of those things. I'm not a brain doctor, so I don't know what this stuff means. But anyway, been watching it for a long time. Not really regularly until high school, when it became available, because I live in Oklahoma, and before the internet, there wasn't really much of an opportunity to watch much anime. You'd go to like a video rental store and just hope they had something. I think at some point early in high school, they had Evangelion VHS tapes you could rent. And a couple of them were pretty messed up. Like the tape was like all like scrunched up, and like it would get all fuzzy, and it was terrible. It was just terrible. People didn't treat these VHSs right. So that was the extent of my anime viewing until we got Cartoon Network's Toonami, and got to enjoy things like Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, etc., Cowboy Bebop, all the good stuff. And then college hit, and I had actual high-speed internet, and I had BitTorrent, and I got to watch whatever I wanted. And so college was really like peak anime for me, where, I watched just about everything that was out. I would just dabble in this and that, mostly stuff that was current at the time, Naruto and all that. And then I graduated. Oddly enough, I moved to Japan and didn't watch much anime at all. I didn't really have a TV and or a way to rent anime and watch it. I mean, I guess I watched Dragon Ball. I rented Dragon Ball DVDs, the original, not Dragon Ball Z, and did all that stuff, and it was fun. But I went through a dry period there for about 10 years where I didn't really watch anything. I was kind of over it. I was beyond anime for whatever reason. It just didn't click. I didn't feel like, it was worth my time. I had other stuff to do. And so, I feel like anime is back. Am I the only one? Or did it never go away? Was it just me that went away? Maybe it was. Shining Lugia, I'm glad we moved past VHS. Rewinding was a pain. Oh, I mean, it was the rewinding, but it was also like, seriously, you'd get a tape and it would just, part of it, like, a minute or two just wouldn't work. You'd get all fuzzy and the screen would be moving up and down. And it's like, okay, whatever they said in that scene, I hope it wasn't important. But anyway, so I got a Crunchyroll subscription about 2 months ago. And I didn't realize how cheap it was. It was like $8 a month or something. And I was looking through their library. They had a 2-week trial, and I thought, oh, we'll just see what they got. Because, my wife loves anime too. And so we're trying to find a way to get our kids to, study Japanese because they're half Japanese. They need to learn to be able to speak Japanese. And sitting down with a book on like hiragana and katakana drills really doesn't get them too excited. So we were like, well, maybe there's some good anime they can watch on Crunchyroll. And my goodness, there are so many. It is crazy. There's tons of little kids stuff, cutesy, like stuff about animals and things like that. But man, they got a ton of stuff. The first thing I did was I went through the entire library, A to Z, top to bottom, and just not wish listed, but like, what do you call it? Watch list. Yeah. I put anything that seemed remotely interesting in my watch list. And so I quickly got like over 100 different shows in my watch list. And I've just been like dabbling in random ones here and there. I'll be like, well, this looks interesting. I heard this is good. Let's watch this. And so I just want to talk about today some of the ones that I've watched. Not all the ones I've watched. Some of them are just not worth mentioning, but these are the ones I've watched, the ones I've enjoyed, the ones I've not so much enjoyed. But for the most part, they've been very good. Some of them I'm like, I don't really need to see any more of this. Like Onara Goro. I don't really need to watch any more than one episode of Onara Goro to get what I need to know from that show, which is he's an old man. He's an old man and he'll get into some trouble. And so he'll fart, and the fart will teach sort of morality lessons to whoever's having problems. It's a weird show. It's pretty funny, but it's like you get the gist of it 30 seconds in. So like there'll be some Yankees, some tough punks who are causing trouble, and Onaragoro, this guy will come up and he'll fart, and the fart will come out and tell them like how they need to live their life, and they respect the fart. And so then they go on to lead lives of good citizens. So that was Onaragoro. But there's so many different shows like that where I'm just like, I have to at least, see what this is about because my curiosity is officially engaged. But anyway, so let's just go down the list. I made a list of a bunch of ones that I watched that I'll talk about, including Onaragoro. And I'll just go from the top because I want to get to the stuff that really matters, the good stuff. So I'll just start with Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, for real, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Not just anime, but like this one came out of nowhere, and this one was not on my radar at all. But I think like right around the time I got the subscription is when season 2 was going up. And the way that Crunchyroll works, as far as I know, for the most part, when a show is broadcast in Japan, they will upload the episode onto Crunchyroll either that day or the next day with subtitles, which is very impressive to me. So it's basically like a torrent, except it's legal and high quality, and which is great. I don't mind paying $8 a month for like quality anime like this that I don't have to fear getting arrested for. So Jujutsu Kaisen, I saw it a bunch on social media, and otherwise I never would have heard of it. I mean, I saw it in like the list of shows, but I wouldn't just naturally click on it and be like, oh, this looks really good. Like everybody on the internet was talking about it. And so I thought, okay, well, I have to give it a shot. And oh my gosh, like this show came out of nowhere. Everything is top drawer. It checks all my boxes really for a good show, or a good piece of media. I mean, the animation, first of all, is stunning. Like the beginning of season 1, like let's say like the first half of season 1, it was good. Like it was okay. But like somewhere like halfway through season 1 and then into season 2, I don't know what sort of death threats or blackmail this Mappa is using against these animators to get them working so hard to make this show look so good. But it's working because the show looks phenomenal. I mean, just like the cinematography, the direction itself, like the camera angles they chose to use, the quality of the animation, the lighting and everything. Like it's insane. I've never seen a animated anything that looks this good. And like that's a lot of the reason why I'm enjoying watching it. I've seen some anime. If you're a regular viewer of anime, you have some you watch where you're like, this costs 10 cents to put together. Like this is literally just like a static figure, and the only thing moving is like his mouth is going from like a circle to a line. Like they put zero effort into the animation. Like this is clearly like, do this as quickly as possible so we can get this out. And sadly enough, I'll get to it in a minute, but I feel like Grand Blue Fantasy is like that. It's not that bad, but it's on that end of the spectrum as far as like animation quality. And I enjoy Grand Blue Fantasy, but Jujutsu Kaisen is just on another level. I seriously don't know what kind of black magic that they're employing to make this show look this good. But like I said, it's working. The story itself is also pretty compelling. Like it's about curses. And so you've got this sort of secret society of curse sorcerers, jujutsu sorcerers, who they use curse techniques to fight curses, which normal people in society can't see. But it's the things that make people go crazy and depressed and murder each other or whatever. So these jujutsu sorcerers, they hunt down and get rid of these curses. But there are also curse users who are sort of like the opposite of jujutsu sorcerers. They're humans that have learned to use curse techniques for evil. And so you've got this sort of like battle, the stage is set or whatever. And so the story follows Itadori Yuji, who eats one of the 20 fingers of Ryomen Sukuna, who's like the worst curse user in all of history. And so he eats it and he gets sort of his powers somewhat, but he somehow manages to keep the spirit of Sukuna inside his body. He's got some kind of special body that keeps the curse from popping out, so he can kind of control it. And he's been sentenced to death by one of the teachers at the jujutsu school. But before he's executed, he has to eat all the fingers, and then they can kill him and kill Sukuna. And so this is the story, but which is good. Like that's interesting, but they get so much better. Like season 1 kind of goes through the origins there. You meet Itadori Yuji and he goes to the school and he meets his classmates. There's his two classmates. And then he meets some of the upperclassmen. And then he meets some people from the Kyoto school and they have a little rivalry and they go through all this stuff. And it's good. It's like a high school everyday life anime, except like crazy. And then season 2 hits and you get the backstory of their teacher, Satoru Gojo, when he was a student at Jujutsu High School. And my gosh, it gets dark and it's really, really good. And I'm officially hooked. Like when I started watching season 2, like season 1 was good. I was like, wow, this is a good show. Let's keep watching it. And then season 2 is just like, holy cow. Like they're pulling out all the stops. This is amazing. And I honestly can't get enough. And so they were working on, it's probably live right now. I haven't watched it yet. Actually, you know what? I'm going to check and see if it's live. So they have story arcs for Jujutsu Kaisen. And let me see. Is this season? Where is the thing? Well, I'm having a hard time using their... What the heck? Sorry. I was trying to use the website to look at the episodes to see if the newest one was up yet. But anyway, they have story arcs. And so like the first half of season 2 ended a couple weeks ago or a month ago. And so it's just been nothing for weeks and weeks. And so finally the first episode of sort of arc 2 of season 2 has was broadcast, I think yesterday or today, and like highly anticipated. It's this event that everything's been leading up to, this big battle. And I'm super excited. I'm probably going to watch it on my lunch break today, and I cannot stinking wait. It's going to be so good. Signing Lugia, if you worker bees don't do this perfectly, we'll be the next Kyoani. Do you want to burn? Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Shining Lugia. Yeah, that wasn't some random arsonist. That was their manager. That's yikes. I thought Jujutsu Kaisen was dark, but Shining Lugia, you take the crown. Anyway, moving on. So anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen is really good, and they touch on a lot of different themes. It does a lot of that kind of modern anime thing where it's like, we'll beat evil with the power of friendship, which, is kind of like, is it anime if it doesn't have that in it? It's like, we're best friends, and so we fight for each other, and we become stronger because of it, which is fine. Friendship is important, especially for high schoolers, especially in Japan. But, it touches on a lot of other stuff too. And it's really good. It's heartfelt. It's just entertaining. Like, it's crazy. The fight scenes are unreal. Like, if you grew up and if you grew up watching like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, like what I would call traditional anime, give this show a shot and watch some of the fight scenes in this show. It's unbelievable. It's madness. Anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of my new favorite shows. It's amazing. I love it. Go watch it. Stop listening to me right now and go watch Jujutsu Kaisen. All right, number 2, since I already touched on it a little bit, is Grand Blue Fantasy, the animation. Now, the only reason I'm watching this is in preparation for Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which comes out now that we have a release date, February 1st, 2024. A game I am super excited about. But Grand Blue Fantasy is kind of like a really all-encompassing media monster that covers lots of different types of media. That let's learn how to talk, James. It's like a media franchise. It started off as a mobile game, and then it turned into some console games, and now it's an anime, and I think they've got movies, and it's just this huge world that they've created. It's a giant moneymaker is what it is. And so I'm super hyped for the game, but to get a better idea of the backstory for everybody and the world itself, I decided to watch Grand Blue Fantasy, the animation. And it's pretty good. It's okay. It's not my favorite show. It's pretty pedestrian. It's just, it's what I would say is a typical anime. Like, there's nothing about it that really stands out like Jujutsu does. It's just, it's all right. It's pretty good. I'm watching it for the backstory. I'm watching it for research for the game, just so that I know who these characters are. I know about this world, who all the players are. And this is what I'm doing. It's got some really irritating characters. Z is just, or V is his nickname, V, the little dragon thing that floats around. He's just annoying as all get out, and I kind of want to like just eat him. I just want to put him on a stick and roast him and eat him. He's really annoying. And there's a lot of that. There's just somehow, I don't know how some of the female voice actors in Grand Blue Fantasy, I don't know how their voices hit some of these pitches that they're hitting, but like it hits something in my brain that just makes me want to kill things. And it's just, speaking of dark, but it's just like, there's a little irritation there. And it's part of the reason like I stepped away from anime is a lot of those characters are just, they're not characters. They're more caricatures. They're like types of characters. They're just, let's take this and push it to the extreme. And for the most part, the characters are fairly one-dimensional, and it's okay. Like I said, I'm here for research. It's all right. It's okay. But yeah, like if I could, that's my one worry about that game, as an aside, about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And I've watched some videos the past week or so of gameplay that they've released, and like some of the voices are a little irritating. And so I'm probably going to end up just like turning characters' voices off just so I can enjoy the game. And but you know, it's a concession. It's just a concession I'm going to have to make. But that's just me. Vern. Yes, it's Vern. Shining Lugia. Isn't his name Vern? They call him V in the show. But yeah, Vern. Hey, Vern. I don't know if he's friends with Ernest P. Worrell, but you know, Shining Lugia. I did enjoy the Grand Blue anime, but why did they think it was a good idea to gender swap the main character at the end? I know you can choose in the game, but why? I haven't gotten that far, but that's not really a spoiler, because I don't care that much. I guess it is a spoiler, but I don't care. It's it's okay. Like I'm continuing to watch it. Like I'm still watching it. Like I haven't given up on it. But like I said, I enjoy the world. Like the world they've created is really interesting, and some of the characters are pretty cool. But some of them just make me want to stab myself in the eyeballs, or I guess in the ears, with an ice pick. So that's my review of Grand Blue Fantasy. It's okay, but sometimes it makes me want to harm myself. Um, it's great. Go watch it. But you know, if you're into anime, you definitely have your own opinion on everything under the sun. So, especially anime. So, I'm sure, my review isn't going to sway anybody either way. Next on the list, that's Grand Blue Fantasy. So yeah, Blue Lock. Now, Blue Lock is one that I love. I really like the show, but I can't recommend it to anybody because it is 100% about soccer. And so if you don't like soccer, you're not going to like the show, period. Like it's a sports, you know, it was a sports manga. They turned it into anime, and it's all about soccer. Like that's it. That's the show. And so if you don't like soccer at all, you're not going to like the show. And it kind of fits into the mold of a lot of sports manga shows and comics. You know, you got two teams and they have their own special moves, and most of it is sort of like the person trying to get the ball, like thinking in their mind about like what's going on the field. Like, oh my gosh, his movements are so fast, and his thinking is so fast, and he's kicking the ball, and the ball's going to go over here, and I have to intercept it and go over here. And so it's kind of, it fits a mold there, but I still enjoy it. It's really good. It's really good at that type of show. And also it helps that I really, really like soccer, as you can see there. I'm a huge fan. So it's really good if you like soccer. I highly recommend it if you like soccer. That's it. It's a good show. And I've got one episode left in season 1. And I told myself, I started reading the manga. So I got really into soccer, and I got some manga for Christmas. And so I was reading those, and I was going to wait to watch the show until I had read all the manga. But like, you know, if you live in Oklahoma, they're expensive to get and time consuming, and they take a while to get. And so I was like, you know what? I want to know what happens. So I'm just going to watch the show. And my thinking was that, you know, I started out reading the manga. I have this idea of what people sound like in my head, like their voices in my head. And so if I watch the show, then that's going to get erased with whatever they actually sound like in the show. And I didn't want that to happen, but you know, kudos to them. The voices in the show are really good. And they lined up really well with what I imagined the characters sounded like. So it was fine, but it's a really good show. It's pretty compelling. The gist of the show, it's not just like soccer, but it's like this organization that recruits for the Japanese national soccer team. Like their main goal is they want to win the World Cup. And why haven't we been able to get past, you know, the group of 16 in the World Cup? What's the deal? And so, or what's the next phase? The quarterfinals. Why haven't we been able to get past the quarterfinals in the World Cup? And so they hire this crazy person who is going to recruit the world's best striker because he feels like a decisive striker with a crazy ego is what's missing from the Japanese national soccer team. So they need somebody who's very selfish, who's going to do nothing but be a maniac for scoring goals. And he said, Japanese society is too all about teamwork and working together and doing this and that. And he said, what we need is a crazy egoist who's just going to score goals for himself. And so they create this facility called Blue Lock, and they recruit the 300 best strikers at the high school level across the country. And they offer to let them come stay at this place and basically have a competition where at the end of it, they will pick one person out of these 300 to be the newest striker for the Japanese national team. But if you drop out along the way, then you will be disqualified from being on the national team forever. And so, which they don't tell them until they get there, which is pretty funny. And so they're all fighting desperately to move on to the next level and the next level. And people just slowly start getting dropped out. And so it's kind of like, what was that show, that movie, Battle Royale, where they drop all these kids off. It's like a dystopian future in Japan. And once a year they pick a high school class. They drop all the kids off on an island, and they each get a bag with a random weapon, and they have to like kill each other. And the last one to survive gets to leave the island. It's sort of got that kind of vibe. It's not as violent as that. It's not as scary as that, but it's that idea. It's like your future soccer career is on the line here. So you've got to give it your all. And it's really cool to watch the players sort of get pushed and pushed and pushed and then progress and evolve and learn new techniques and become better soccer players. But it's really detailed in sort of like what makes a good player. And so I'm learning a lot just as a soccer fan, sort of the training and mentality and everything that goes into what makes a good soccer player. And it's surprisingly detailed and well fleshed out. It's not just kick the ball better. It's like, here's what you need to do to train mentally or physically to improve your shots or improve your stamina or whatever. So it's really good. Like I said, if you like soccer, if you don't like soccer, you probably hate it. So that's it. But is it soccer or football? It's soccer. So, Shining Lugu, probably my favorite sports anime being is Ao no Kanata no 4 Rhythm. It's pretty generic, but I love sport they've created. I've never heard of that. Ao no Kanata no 4 Rhythm. It's called Flying Circus. They have anti-gravity shoes that let them fly, and it's half relays, half tag, but in the air. Oh, weird. That sounds interesting. But, one of the sports manga that I really enjoyed was Eye Shield 21, and it was about American football. And so this high school in Tokyo, they've got these 3 guys who are crazy into American football. And so they slowly start recruiting people, mostly through like blackmail, to join their football team. And, you learn the rules of football, and it was really good. It was a really good show. But it was a little more lighthearted, but Blue Lock is like, it's tough, man. It's a tough show, but it's good. I really enjoy it. So if you like soccer, you like Blue Lock, probably. Next on the list, we have Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. And this is one that I watched because of a recommendation from Fightin' Cowboy. If you're familiar with FromSoft's games, you're probably familiar with his YouTube channel. And this was not directly recommended to me. He just recommended it on Twitter. And he said it was the best anime he's watched this year. And so I thought, well, that's quite a announcement. Quite a, what's the word I'm looking for? Golly, my brain is not working today. Drink the coffee so you give yourself time. Need a moment. I need a Twix. That's quite the endorsement. Yes, endorsement. So if it's the best he's watched all year, and I know he's crazy for anime. So Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. And I've only watched 2 episodes, I think. So I'm not too deep into it. And I don't remember the characters' names. But this guy, he's like in his 20s. He works for this company. It's like his dream job. And then he slowly starts to discover that This job is a nightmare. They overwork everybody. It's one of those black corporations that they call in Japan. And he gets to go home like once every 3 days to sleep. That's how much they're overworking him, everybody. And so they work on these like media projects and stuff. And so he's super depressed. His life is terrible. He's exhausted, and he hates going to work with a passion. And like, he's not functioning as a human being. And then all of a sudden it's the zombie apocalypse, and he realizes he doesn't have to go to work anymore. And he becomes like the happiest man on planet Earth. He's like running through the streets, hopping from rooftop to rooftop, like screaming, crying tears of joy, like, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And so he's so happy that he has his freedom. He has his life back. He's not chained to this horrible job anymore, that he starts writing out his bucket list of the dead. And it's 100 things I want to do before I become a zombie. And so it's pretty interesting. And so he starts thinking about and trying to do all of these things that he's always wanted to do amongst the the zombie apocalypse in Tokyo. And so he meets some other survivors along the way, and they have their own sort of motivations for wanting to survive and all that. And it's a good show. It's pretty good. I'm waiting till I watch the rest of Grand Blue Fantasy and Blue Lock to really get into it. But it's pretty good. It's very entertaining. I like the concept of it. And the second episode, I think he meets this other survivor at the convenience store. He goes on a beer run to the convenience store, so he's risking his life to go get some beer to go back to his apartment. And he meets this woman who's like crazy, organized, survivalist type of person. She's very serious, and she's there to get like actual supplies. She ends up like saving his life, and he's like, hey, let's exchange information. And she's like, no thanks, you're an idiot, bye. And you sort of follow her story a little bit, and she's a super serious like businesswoman, and she has all this like Excel sheets about like what she needs to survive and all this planning. And she starts making a list. It was like 100 things to do to survive, 100 things I need to do to survive. And his list is 100 things to do before I become a zombie. So it's like he's already decided, like, yeah, I'm probably going to become a zombie at some point, but this is the stuff I'd like to do before then. And so these two are, I'm sure, going to link up at some point and survive together. It's pretty good, but it's a good show. I like the concept of a guy just overjoyed at the idea of a zombie apocalypse. Which is funny because I'm sure a lot of people would probably actually be like that. Going past Zom 100, I need to pick up the pace a little bit. I probably might not even get to all of these. Honda-kun. This is one that my wife was watching, and I got intrigued by and ended up having to watch the whole thing myself. Honda-kun is it's it's a high school everyday life comedy kind of anime. And it's about this guy who goes to high school, and for whatever reason, he's convinced that everybody at the school hates him. And so he's convinced they're bullying him and they don't like him. When in reality is everybody super admires him and respects him. And it comes off weird. Like everybody at the school starts becoming obsessed with him through these different like weird misunderstandings where he's very like shy and awkward around everybody, but everybody sees him as like super cool. You just kind of have to watch it. It kind of reminds me of like an episode of a US sitcom like Frasier or something, where there's just like, you have one core misunderstanding that leads to these hilarious results. And that's like the whole show. And so every episode, it's like another group of people that, they're kind of oblivious to this guy. He's convinced they hate him, and so he does something, and then they're all like, "Oh, he's the coolest guy ever," but we're too shy to tell him that. And it ends up like the whole school becomes obsessed with him. He's like the school's mascot, and he thinks they're all bullying him and hate his guts. But it's a pretty funny show, and it was really short. I think it was like 12 episodes or something, 10 episodes, and it was only one season. The show just like ends abruptly, and it resolves itself fairly well. But it was just like, it's over. But it's pretty good. So if you got some time, if you get 5 or 6 hours, It's a good laugh. It's pretty good. That's Honda Kun. Honda. Handa Kun. It was pretty funny. If you need a laugh. If you need a laugh. The other one. This is another one in kind of that same vein. My Love Story was what the English title was. I think it was called Ore Monogatari in Japanese. And again, it's a high school romance anime where the main character, he's like this gigantic gorilla looking muscle man in high school. Like people always mistake him for some guy in his 30s, and he's like a first year high school student. He's like just humongous. And it's sort of like he's got a best friend from childhood who's like the guy that all the girls want to get with, but he's just sort of ambivalent to all of them. He just wants to go home and read books, and all the girls are crazy about him. And so these two are best friends. And turns out the main character, he's super strong and he always wants to help people, but people are usually afraid of him because he's very intimidating. He ends up saving this girl on a train from a groping pervert, a chikan. And so she's super grateful and falls in love with him. And he thinks, as has always been the case, that she's in love with his friend, who all the ladies have always loved historically. And so there's a lot of this back and forth where, she wants to meet up, but he thinks it's only because his friend is there. And so they all meet up together. And this, again, it's just like misunderstandings like this. And it's a cute show. It's pretty funny. If you want to see like the daily life, one of the Japanese daily life shows about romance and sort of relationships in high school and all that stuff. It's pretty funny. I enjoyed it. My wife and I both enjoyed it. It's pretty funny. So I would recommend that one, even if you're not into that. Ore Monogatari, I love that one. The sweets look so good. All right, Shining Lugia is into it too. Good. Yes, one of the things that she is into is baking, and so whenever they meet up, she always bakes something for the main character. And I apologize, I can't remember anybody's names. It's been like a month since we watched that show, and so I can't remember anybody's name. It was, let me see. It's gonna drive me crazy. It's gonna drive me crazy. My Love Story. Yeah, Takeo Goda. That's his name. Takeo Goda is a giant guy with a giant heart. Too bad the girls don't want him. They always go for his good-looking best friend, Sunakawa. Used to being on the sidelines, Takeo simply stands tall and accepts his fate. But one day, when he saves a girl named Yamato from a harasser on the train, his love life suddenly takes an incredible turn. Takeo can hardly believe it when he crosses paths with Yamato again, and he finds himself falling in love with her. But with handsome Sunakawa around, does Takeo even stand a chance? So yeah, that's the show. And it's pretty good. I will say, if I had one beef about the show, like, it really doesn't create enough conflict to keep it compelling, like, dramatically. I've seen enough shows and movies, even like romantic comedies, to know sort of like the typical story beats and issues that arise in like romantic relationships in TV and movies. You've seen one, you've seen them all kind of thing. And none of that stuff really pops up in this show. You expect at some point they're going to have some kind of disagreement or fight or risk of breaking up or something. But it's like, it never really goes that direction. And so like, I kept expecting like, oh, something's going to happen. They're going to start to mistrust each other. They're going to do this and this. And it's always just kind of like, nope, everything's fine, which is fine. It's a good show. It doesn't really need the conflict, but I kept waiting for it to happen and it never did. And at the very end of the show, they kind of start to get into something similar to that. They add this other person and mix it up and test their love for each other, whatever. But it's a good show. It's pretty funny. Shining Lugia, another one I'd recommend airing at the moment is My Happy Marriage on Netflix. It's so cute and wholesome. My Happy Marriage. It sounds like it. It sounds cute and wholesome. With a name like that, how could you go wrong? But My Love Story is pretty good. Okay. I got another one. I'll talk about this one first before I get to that other one. Buddy Daddies was another one that my wife and I watched together, and we both really enjoyed it. So it's about these two assassins. They're hired hitmen, and they're young guys. And one's kind of like the goofy, happy-go-lucky kind of guy whose stuff just happens to work out for. And you've got the serious one who's cold and calculating. And they work together, and they plan these sort of like heists where they're hired to kill people. And along the way, during a job, they end up killing this guy, and they end up having to adopt his like very young daughter, who's like, I think she's like 4 years old. And the dude's a scumbag, and I guess his mistress sent the kid to go meet up with the dad. He didn't want her, and so along the way, they complete the job, they finish the job, and they realize what happened and who this girl is, and so they end up adopting her, sort of, and taking care of her. And so you've got these two assassins balancing their job and career, and the struggles of trying to raise a 4-year-old girl. Two guys with no experience doing that. And it's kind of a 3 men and a baby kind of situation, except it's 2 men and a baby. Two assassins and a baby is what the name of the show should be. I thought Buddy Daddies was kind of a dumb name for the show. I think Two Assassins and a Baby would have made more sense. But that's the gist of it. So you get a lot of this back and forth, and it's like they start suffering at their job, and because they have these responsibilities, and they have to like get through all the crazy like paperwork and stuff to get her into school and convince the teachers that they are her dads and all this other stuff. But it's a good show. It was really good. It kind of reminded me of Cowboy Bebop a little bit, as far as like the tone in Cowboy Bebop can kind of shift between like super serious, they're, bounty hunters. So kind of in the same vein of work as assassins. They're bounty hunters, hired killers, hired hunters. And, but it can shift over to silliness with like the children, with like Ed and Ein on the Bebop. So you've got this silly aspect to it as well. And so it jumps back and forth between those moods pretty well. But it is a good show. I recommend Buddy Daddies, if you've not seen it. Let's see. Shining Lugia. This is My Happy Marriage. It's about a girl who is basically a slave to her family, and she has serious self-esteem issues. She has to come to terms with the fact that her arranged husband actually loves her. That sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard that synopsis before. Maybe. My Happy Marriage. Maybe not. Anyway, sorry, I was just looking it up. My Happy Marriage. Images. Oh, okay. Oh, so like there's an anime and a live action thing and a manga and all this stuff. All the things. They check all the boxes with that one. My Happy Marriage. Interesting. I don't have a Netflix subscription anymore. I've been just all I do is watch Crunchyroll and play video games. So that's all I've needed. But Buddy Daddies is good. I recommend it. Let's see. I recommend all of these that I've seen. Let's see. Okay, here's one. This is the one I was going to talk about. It's pretty out there, but it's short. And if you want like an interesting outsider's look at Japanese society, it's pretty funny. Terumae Romae, which I guess in English you could call it Thermae Romae or Thermi Romi. Anyway, I've always been confused at the Roman sort of like AE pronunciation of a word. Anyway, it's about a public bath designer in ancient Rome who ends up getting sucked into a portal in the public bath. He's distraught at his lack of inspiration and ability to come up with any new good ideas for his public baths, for his bath designs. And so he gets sucked into a portal in the bath, the public bath, right? The hot spring or whatever. Gets sucked into a portal underwater and pops out in modern day Japan in a hot spring. And he's shocked at the technological advancements of he calls them flat-faced slaves, which as I say it sounds horrible, but it's really funny. Taken in the context of like Japanese people writing, the dialogue of this character. But like he's like, who are these flat-faced people? They must be slaves and live in a slave village because they're not amazing Romans like I am. And he's always enthralled by the technological advancements of the flat-faced slaves. And so he ends up like discovering something and then getting back in the portal and taking that knowledge back to ancient Rome. And he doesn't have direct control over when he can go back and forth. It's always sort of like by accident and really good timing for him. And so like whenever he's sort of lost or like, I need to come up with a good idea for this, I need to come up with a solution to this problem, he gets sucked into the portal again and popped up in a different kind of hot spring, in a different context, in a different place every time. It's always in Japan somewhere. And so he'll get some new inspiration. And, the first one's from like these cold, like sweet milk drinks that they drink after they get out of the hot spring. And one of them's like a shower cap to keep the shampoo from getting in your eyes. And he ends up in some hot spring resort town. And so he sees all the like food they have there and like the different games and like resorts and stuff. And it's a pretty funny show. It's obviously not to be taken seriously. It's one of the like sort of gag, like jokey kind of anime things. And it's pretty funny. It's very weird. It's very strange, but it was cracking me up. So Thermae Romae is highly recommended if you just need a good laugh at some crazy nonsense. It's crazy. It's crazy and it's nonsense and it's about hot springs. So why wouldn't I love it? So that one was really good. Let me see. I'm out of coffee. I need water. Let me take a sip of water. I'm going to narrate for you folks that are just listening in your car or whatever. Now I am going to take a sip of water. I'm such a professional radio DJ. All right. So now I'm going to get into the ones I'm running out of time, but these are going to be quick one shots. I'm going to get into the ones where I've seen like maybe one episode of these or a few episodes of these and take them or leave them. Here we go. So With a Dog and a Cat Every Day is Fun is one of them. And this one's actually pretty funny. They're little short, like 1 to 3 minute episodes, if you want to call them episodes. They're just short videos. And it's kind of like life with a dog and with a cat and sort of the differences between dogs and cats. And it's just funny little observations about how different they are. And it's about this woman who she lives in an apartment or a house or whatever, and she has a little toy poodle and she has a cat, and how the toy poodle is so loving and fun and carefree, and the cat is like a serial killer. But it's pretty funny and it's really quick. So if you need a quick laugh with a dog and a cat, Every Day is Fun. It's pretty hilarious, especially if you have pets. So yeah, go watch that one. Vinland Saga. I know this show is awesome. It's really amazing. I think I watched 2 episodes of this show, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. But again, I'm watching I'm watching so many shows at the same time. I'm watching so many shows at the same time that I don't want to spread myself too thin and water down all the stuff I'm watching. So I'm going to finish up a couple of these shows and really dig into Vinland Saga. But I heard it was really good, so I watched a couple episodes, and it is really good. It's amazing. It's incredible. I'm loving it. So I look forward very much to watching more of Vinland Saga. If you don't know, it's about Vikings and their quest to find North America and the Vinland or whatever, the wonderful promised land of golden sunshine and fields full of crops and all that sort of stuff. But, Viking wars, Vikings fighting each other is the show. It's good. I can't wait to watch more. Okay, question. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What the heck is up with this show? Okay, I asked this the other day during a stream. I think I was playing Sea of Stars, but I brought it up. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I've heard a lot of stuff about the show, mostly praise. Everybody loves this show. It's like chock full of memes. It's become like the internet sensation. I mean, it has been for like the past, five plus years, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So I thought, all right, it's actually the first show I put into my watch list. And so I finally watched the first episode the other day. And what the heck is this show? How am I supposed to feel watching this show? Like, am I supposed to take this seriously? Is this all just a big joke? Like, honestly, like, I'm watching it and I don't even know how to react to the things that are happening on the show. I'm like, do I laugh? Am I supposed to be impressed? Like, honestly, I'm going to watch more. Don't worry. This isn't one that I'm just going to toss aside after watching one episode. I'm smarter than that. I know more about anime than that, and TV in general. You can't just watch one episode of a show and just judge it based on that one episode, especially if it's the pilot. But I'm going to watch more JoJo. Trust me. But my goodness, it is unlike anything I've seen before. I will say that. So I don't even know where to begin with it, but Shining Lugia, just look that one up. And episode 1 is called All Baths Lead to Rome. Yeah, that's Thermae Rome. It's really funny. It really is. It's a look at Japanese bath culture through the eyes of an ancient Roman bath designer. So it's hilarious. Check it out. But JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I can't really recommend it at this point because I don't even know what the heck it is. So I'm going to watch more after I check some of these more shows. Jeez, James, take a communications class or learn how to talk right. I'm going to watch some shows before me tell you what watch more. I'm going to watch some more episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure before I can really make any judgments about its quality. There we go. Next on the list, I watched a couple of episodes of Welcome to the NHK. And I thought, how can they get away with making a show about NHK? Aren't they going to get sued? Because it's not in a good light. But it's not NHK, the Japanese public broadcasting company. It's the NHK. Welcome to the NHK, not welcome to NHK. The NHK in this context is Nippon Hikikomori Kyokai, which is the Japanese shut-in society organization. I don't know. And it's about a guy who is upset with how his life has gone. And he's just shut in. He's a hikikomori. He's stuck in his apartment and doesn't want to interact with society. This girl comes over one day to try to proselytize, release him from his prison. And he ends up being sort of intrigued by her. And she wants to help him not be a hikikomori. And he is not convinced at all that he even is a hikikomori. He just doesn't want to come out. He just likes being at home. He's not a hikikomori. I'm not one of those weirdos shut-ins. I'm just here. But it's a weird show. I think it's like an early 2000s kind of show. I want to say it came out in like 2006 or something like that. And so it kind of has that vibe. It's weird, but a good kind of weird. And so he ends up, yeah. The main character is kind of a scumbag. Like, the more you watch it, the more you're like, I don't like this guy at all. But you kind of root for him regardless. Like, you want to see him get out of this situation because he keeps lying and getting in more trouble and trying to scheme his way out of his problems. And you keep hoping he's going to make the right decision. And that's kind of where I'm at. I think I've watched like 3 episodes of it. Welcome to the NHK. And I wish the best for him. But it's a pretty weird show, but it's a good look at sort of that hikikomori culture, if you want to call it a culture, society. Real quick, I've only got 6 minutes left. I got 4 more shows to talk about. Skullface bookseller Honda-san. This one is hilarious. It's the title and the animation is kind of misleading as to what the show is actually about. The Skullface aspect of it really has nothing to do with the show. It's just set dressing. but it's really about a day in the life of a guy who works at a bookstore, and sort of the common problems and foibles and hilarious situations that arise from being a bookseller in Japan. And it's pretty funny. It's really quick with the pace and the jokes, and it's through the eyes of an employee. He just happens to have a skull face. It really has nothing to do with the story, which is really the funny part of it. But everybody there has some kind of, they're all like monsters and stuff, but they deal with the customers and all the crazy types of customers and requests and things that they have when they come into the store. It's pretty funny. So check it out. Again, it's sort of like with a dog and a cat, every day is fun. It's just like quick laughs. It's funny. It's silly. You don't have to take it seriously at all. So yeah, go check out Skullface Bookseller Honda-san. Golden Boy is one that I remember. This was like a mid 90s anime. This was like way back in the day. And I remember seeing this one at like the rental place, the VHS rental place. And it was like rated R or whatever. It was mature only. And I remember thinking like, why would they make a cartoon that only grown-ups can watch? And apparently it's pretty inappropriate in many different ways. But Golden Boy is he's a guy who rides his bike across the country solving people's problems, but he's also kind of a perv. So that's where you get your adult rating for Golden Boy. But I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking like, oh, I'll never be able to watch that. And then I saw it on Crunchyroll and I was like, I got to watch this show. I've got to like check that box off. And 9-year-old James would be so happy that I'm finally able to watch Golden Boy. And it's not great. It's it kind of fits that stereotypical like pervert character in anime, except he's the main character, and it gets kind of old. It's you can skip Golden Boy, I think, unless you just really want to see what anime was like in the mid 90s. I think it came out like 94, 95, something like that. The animation's good. I like the character designs of that era. It definitely captures an era of animation, but the content itself is not great. So skip Golden Boy. On the other hand, City Hunter. City Hunter is another one that I think this one was 80s, maybe late 80s, early 90s. City Hunter. And it's about a private eye in the big city who does private eye things. And got to be one of the coolest shows I've seen. It's like Cowboy Bebop, but only the super cool parts, only the serious cool parts of Cowboy Bebop, where Spike is like very serious. That's City Hunter, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. My wife recommended it to me. She said she watched it when she was a kid, or when she was younger. Maybe not a kid, but it's a pretty cool show. And there's tons of episodes, so many episodes. Like this show was on the air for so long, and it's good. You should check it out. Like if you really want to watch a cool 80s anime, check out City Hunter. It's awesome. Finally, I'm going to end strong with this one. Tonkatsu DJ Agetaro. I watched one episode of this one. I probably won't watch anymore, but the gist of it is you've got this guy whose family runs a tonkatsu shop, and he's not happy with his fate as a tonkatsu shop heir, and he doesn't even get to fry the tonkatsu. He just cuts the cabbage. He's just a cabbage cutter, and his dad takes the job very seriously of frying tonkatsu for his customers, and so he's not happy with his fate, and then he ends up serving food to some DJ who's DJing at some underground rave club, and one way or another, this guy ends up in the club that night. He has to deliver some food. That's right. He has to deliver food to somebody who works at the club. And so the guy's like, oh, thanks for the delivery. Hey, you want to come into the club for a bit and check it out? And the guy's like, oh my gosh, I get to go into a club. Cool. And so he goes in the club, and he's so inspired by the DJ and just the atmosphere of the dance club and all this stuff. He's so inspired that he realized that like being a DJ is a lot like frying tonkatsu. And so he goes back to his job working at the tonkatsu shop with a newfound sort of motivation to do the job well through the eyes of like doing it like a DJ. And it's weird, but it's pretty funny. It's one of those that like I don't really have time for. Like I've got so much stuff to watch and so many games to play in addition to just being an adult and all the responsibilities that go along with that. So I don't have much time for Tonkatsu DJ Agetaro, but it's pretty funny and surreal. Anyway, those are all the anime I've been watching recently. For the most part, I really like them. I've got a lot more on my watch list. I will definitely be doing another episode, another podcast episode talking about anime when I watch some of the other ones in my watch list, as I dig more into shows like Vinland Saga, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and dabble in the buffet of anime that I've curated for myself later on down the road. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you very much, Shining Lugia, for your input. I remember the Booksellers show. I think I watched that when it aired. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So, yes, thank you for tuning in, Shining Lugia. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Let me know in the comments, what are your favorite animes? What do you recommend to me? As somebody who's coming back into anime, what's a show that you can say, James, you have to watch this show. It's the best show ever. Put it in the comments. Also, what do you think of the shows that I mentioned in the podcast today? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time right here on Oh yeah, be sure and turn in tonight for Sea of Stars, stream number 2, 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. I somehow managed to not play any Sea of Stars since the last stream. I did watch some more Blue Lock, which is also really good. But yes, tune in tonight. Sea of Stars, 8 o'clock. See you then.